to overtime.
Dwayne Wade right at the body of Anderson Varejao. Welcome to your Kodak moment, Anderson Varejao.
Doncic pulls up, three-pointer. Bang! Bang! It's good! Doncic wins the game at the buzzer!
Additionally, the Pistons getting Saddiq Bey at 19, where I thought he really should have gone, somewhere earlier. Insanity. Genuine insanity. Josh Green, I also like a lot. Of course, Tyrese Maxey, we can talk about. I love my Kentucky guards. I think they just kind of come in and they're ready to play. And that's not to say they don't improve, but having a good starting point is obviously a plus. If you have a good starting point, it's easier to get to higher ceilings quicker because you have a lesser distance to go. So I loved Tyrese Maxey there. I'm surprised the Pistons didn't take him, especially after trading away Luke Kennard and then going for, what could be a win-now player. I think Saddiq Bey is the next Robert Covington. And of course, he's, if you come out of Villanova, you're going to end up being a positionally smart passer, a good team defender, no matter who you are. And Saddiq Bey is clearly that. But I don't know. The Pistons, we'll talk about the Pistons a bit later because they did some weird stuff. But in the first round, those are my steals. I loved Malachi Flynn. Malachi Flynn was top 20 on my board, and going to the Raptors is perfect for him as long as he actually gets playing time. I talked about Jaden McDaniels a little bit. Tyrell Terry falling to 31 is insane to me. I had him as a top 15 player. I loved Tyrell Terry. I thought he was incredibly good. And he put on muscle. He's still 6'2"-ish with not a lot of weight, like maybe 200 tops. So he needs to put on more weight. But the Mavs traded away Seth Curry during the draft, and they got back his replacement immediately. As far as the rest of the second round goes, I loved Paul Reed. Paul Reed was a top 30 player for me. I thought he was really good, and he fell all the way to 58, which is the third to last pick of the draft. I don't know why he fell that far. Probably because he's kind of an old school player, but he's exactly what a winning team needs. And I'm amazed that he fell all the way there, especially with the Hornets taking Vernon Carey at 32, which I hate. And I also liked Tyler Bate of the Sixers at 36, which was part of the Seth Curry trade, where he ended up with the Mavs. Yes. And then the Kings got Robert Woodard, another one of my steals. The Kings had a good draft. I'd say additionally, the Spurs had a good draft. Devin Vassell, Trey Jones, just adding to a defensive culture. It's not bad, but it's also not anything insane to me. But of course, when there's good value picks, there's also bad value picks. I was the first to yell at the Suns last year for taking Jalen Smith, for taking Cameron Johnson over any of the better options. I liked Brandon Clark to them. Even then, I really liked Kevin Porter Jr. as a spark plug there. I loved Kevin Porter Jr. coming into this draft, but there just seemed to be so many better players than Cameron Johnson. I mean, hell, they hadn't had Rubio yet, and I was looking at Romeo Langford as someone that I thought could potentially take over those duties as a tall point guard. I also liked Nickeil Alexander-Walker a lot, and they took Cameron Johnson. And of the players I just listed, Cameron Johnson may not be the best going forward, may not have the highest potential, but absolutely did so much for the Suns team, and that's impressive. So I look at the Jalen Smith pick, and I really don't like it. I think he's a full-time center. I don't think he can play four. And this, if DeAndre Ayton weren't great, this would make sense because you would have two, centers that could do a lot. You have the big bruiser. You have the mobile one. I really don't like it. I don't think he can play the four, and that's what it comes down to, because you just drafted if he can't play the four, you just took a backup five that's going to play the 14 minutes a game that DeAndre Ayton doesn't. And you took him with a top 10 pick when Tyrese Halliburton was still available as your point guard of the future once CP3 is gone. So I had big issues there. That being said, Jalen Smith is a legitimate 3-and-D center. And I think he is going to be a very good player. He was my favorite center in this class. Sorry, no, that's not true. He was my third favorite center in this class in the tier immediately after Onyeka Okongwu and James Wiseman. Of course, I preferred Okongwu to Wiseman. And then I liked Paul Reed a lot. Other players that I think were, big reaches at their point. I didn't like Aaron Smith to the Celtics. I just don't think they're going to get him the touches that he really deserves. He would have been a great shooter, running off of screens and all that. I hate the Isaiah Stewart pick. Genuinely, stop taking, big men that can't do anything special with top 20 picks. It's awful. Isaiah Stewart is not anything special. What else do you want me to say? He's going to be a consistent, decent starting five. I see him at Steven Adams at his best, and everyone knows my thoughts about Steven Adams. As for other players that I think were overdrafted, Udoka Azubuike, absolutely I think was overdrafted. Emmanuel Quickley to the Knicks. As much as I love my Kentucky guards, that's way too early for a 6'1" shooting guard who cannot play point guard. They added a shooter, and shooting is always important, especially for a team built around R.J. Barrett and Mitchell Robinson, both of whom are relative non-shooters as compared to their positional groups. So I don't like that. And then in the second round, I'm not going to say that anyone is a reach because, come on, it's the second round.